It's everybody.
It's everybody.
Holy
oh my God. Pisco, bro. What are your thoughts,
I mean,
man?
it's what I said to people like David Portnoy, who, I've been tweeting at him a little bit. You can't pretend to be pro-cop and be in favor of getting rid of these cop beaters. You can't pretend to be in favor of the Constitution. You can't pretend to be in favor of patriotism if you are willing to sacrifice the rule of law and justice in this way. I struggle to think in recent memory of a more corrupt action taken by a president of the United States.
Breaking news real quick. This is a big one. Hang on one second. Boy. Can you all hear this?
Relating to events that occurred on January 6, 2021.
Okay, and how many people is this?
I think this order will apply to approximately 1,500 people, sir.
So this is January 6th. These are the hostages.
Oh my God.
Approximately 1,500 for a pardon. Full pardon.
Oh my God! Wait, he blanket pardoned.
Computations in there, where we're doing further research. Nice.
You know what's really quick, Jessiah? I mean, we get the point of the clip at this point. The wild part about this is that people accused Biden of just listening to his handlers, not looking into anything. Guys, if Biden had been handed an executive order, a document, whatever it is, the pardon document for a bunch of random members of his family, and then he said, "What is this for? Oh, this is pardons for people. Oh, how many? Oh, okay, I'll just sign it." But can you imagine the Rob Nordstrom the next day? Can you imagine the advertisements that would be made the next day? Donald Trump
wait,
just
is
got handed.
This a blanket? Is this everybody?
I mean,
is it a blanket pardon?
Pisco, is there more than... he says 1,500. That's not the totality, is it?
I mean, it's damn close. Jesus.
It is a significant, the vast majority of defendants of terrorists who attacked our Capitol, who tried to steal the 2020 election. And I need everyone in the chat who's watching to wake the up. It is Monday, and we have 4 more years of this blatant corruption. If you don't know where your priorities are at the moment, find someone who has a clue. This motherfucker just let out a group of violent gangsters, of thugs who attacked our elected representatives. Get your game faces on today, because this shit's not going to get better. Today will be the best day you have in the 4 years of Trump. And until you get that through your brain, we are going to continue to lose.
Yeah, so real quick. So again, we're getting this information real time. Obviously, we don't have the names of the 1,500. We don't know what they're being pardoned for. We don't know how much of the 1,500 comprise, the totality of those who have been accused, let alone convicted. So let's do some reading on this real quick. Trump pardons roughly 1,500 criminal defendants charged in the January 6th Capitol attack. Trump said on Monday he was issuing roughly 1,500 pardons and commuting the sentences of 6 of his supporters in connection with the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, when thousands of them stormed the building amid his false claims that the 2020 presidential election was rigged against him. He made the remarks after returning to the White House Monday evening. And of course, we just saw the signing right there. An attorney for Enrique Tarrio, the Proud Boys leader convicted of seditious conspiracy, told NBC News on Monday that his client was being processed for release from FCI Pollock, a medium security prison in Louisiana. Tarrio was serving 22 years in federal prison after being convicted of seditious conspiracy.
These are the guys who were convicted of seditious conspiracy. These are Proud Boys, bro. These are Oath Keepers. These are the most culpable. These are the people who planned it in advance. I mean,
quote, just hang on real quick. The quote, he is being processed out, his attorney said. We do not know what type of clemency he is receiving. And then the only other thing I just want to say real quick, this resulted in the largest FBI investigation ever, with criminal charges against more than 1,500 people in criminal convictions against more than 1,100 defendants. So just real quick, because there's so much to unpack, does that mean there was
some of these have to be preempted,
2,600, right? or is it saying that 1,100 criminal convictions out of the 1,500 that were charged? If that's the case, if slightly more than 1,500 people were charged and he just pardoned 1,500, then Pisco is right. That is the lion's share.
Yeah. So the 1,500, right? So like that could be people, the difference there, right? The delta between the 1,500
Yeah.
and 1,100. They could have charged, but then withdrew the charges because there's not enough evidence, or because there are a couple cases that they were acquitted. So there could be a lot of reasons for that delta and why it's not completely 1,500. But yeah, it's the vast majority of people. If he's pardoning or commuting the sentence of Enrico Tarrio, that's the worst of the worst, folks. That's the worst of the worst. And it's a sad day. It really, it makes you want to cry for this republic.
And look, I
Holy
think that
shit.
we'll get diligence. I mean, I'm sure that the media will do diligence on all the people specifically who were impacted by these pardons. But again, the problem here, especially, is that per the clip of him signing these, Trump just hasn't done any diligence here. What we have here is radical elements within his administration basically just saying, yeah, just pardon all these people. Don't look into it, right? I mean, this is a truly wild thing, right? And forget, I mean, what Pisco is saying is true as well. Like, just the fact that he's looking into this is a completely insane thing. But, the fact that he's not even so much as doing diligence, like, it'd be one thing to say, like, oh, we're not going to pardon the people who beat and assaulted police officers, which is not clear. Even that story speaks to the effect that a lot of these people were charged with serious crimes like that. It's just, what's tragic here, and the scary part to me personally is, 2028 will come around at some point, right? And I have no idea. For the first time in my life, I don't know the credibility of the following election that we're going to have. I really just don't. I have no idea what that's going to look like. I don't know what plans in the background are going to have. And I think the scarier part is that that's all happening in an environment where Trump is controlling the government, and the Supreme Court has said he pretty much has immunity to do a lot of the things that we're most afraid that he will do, right? It's a very scary time. But like Pisco said, let's try to lock in. Let's try to stay focused. And let's just try to hold on, I guess.
That's insane, because even now, folks, to be very clear, polling for sweeping pardons for January 6th defendants is extremely unpopular.
But I feel like the risk here is that it's happening on a day where 75 things are happening.
Right.
And so it just gets buried, So
Oh,
like
and
this happens all
really
the
quick,
time.
To Jessiah and Hutch's point, this is something that it is up to Democrats in office to make this a big deal.
Right.
We have to start, you have to start talking about these things on a consistent basis. And this isn't, this isn't like Russiagate. This isn't something that, in my view, I think it's kind of like overly drowned out because of the consistency of talking about over an extended period of time. Like, there's going to be a lot of crazy things that Trump does over this period of time. And it's up to the Democrats to talk about these things on a consistent basis, condemn them very forcefully. I'm sure that the next Piers Morgan segment will be condemning the divisive nature of these things. The most important thing, Trump is not a very divisive person. But we have to condemn also that kind of language. Look, this isn't normal. This isn't like both sides. Oh, can't you see the middle ground here? Like, these are a bunch of people that broke into the Capitol to break up the peaceful transfer of power. In doing so, assaulted a bunch of police officers. I mean, these aren't a group of people that are worthy of very much sympathy, right? And blanket pardon from the president. It's only, we're not even this isn't day one. This is the first few hours of the Trump administration.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm stunned, because at the same time, again, I'm scrolling and I'm really wanting an explicit confirmation from journalists about what the delta is between those issued a pardon today and the total number of defendants charged over the totality of the January 6th investigations. I'd love to see that. I imagine it would be a stunning number. But yeah, for a very specific example, going back to Pisco's point, Enrique Tarrio, of all people, again, successfully convicted on the extraordinarily rare charge of seditious conspiracy. This is not an everyday crime. This is one they have to blow the dust off of. That's how egregious his actions were. Stunning. I mean, stunning. And also undermining the notion that we've been hearing from Trump apologists that Trump is much more subdued this time around. He's going to be much more, bipartisan. He's going to be all of the shit that
His
he was
legacy,
talking about.
Jessiah.
Exactly. All of that was just rhetorical flourish for the campaign trail, which I would argue is bad enough and disqualifying enough. A presidential candidate, a former president, a president-elect saying the shit, and not following through with it would still be bad enough and disqualifying. Here he is.
We already know what MAGA's response is going to be. They're going to equivocate with Biden's pardons today and yesterday.
Right.
Which were disgraceful, in my opinion. Biden's, I'm not going to dwell that much on it. I know people are like, who's going to dwell on it? No, I'm not. They were disgraceful. They were corrupt. And Biden, I think, is ended on a real low note, especially with the pardons of his family. I think that was disgraceful. But this is just, if you really want to think about the damage that pardon could do to our republic, to our constitutional system, this is just the worst thing I've ever seen.
To be clear, how would you compare these two? Like, if you view President Biden's pardoning, I assume you mean of his family,
that's right,
as egregiously corrupt. Where does the corruption rank compared to this?
I think that this is, the size of the observable universe.
This is so much worse.
Exactly.
This
Right.
is so much worse, bro.
Try to imagine the scale of the observable. Your mind literally can't do it. And compare that to the city of Chicago or something like that. That is how I view the galactic. I don't even know how to put it in the terms of the immense scale between those two actions. These are people who try to overthrow our constitutional system, and the work of good patriots in the Department of Justice, FBI agents, people working tirelessly, how many thousands of man hours to bring to justice the terrorist thugs. It is all turned into ash in front of our faces.
Yeah.
And justice has been completely curtailed, destroyed, flattened. And it's because of what happened here, because we, the people, failed.
And look, I say what you want about our, we all in various magnitudes predicted that Harris would win. Our political instincts in various forms were off about that. But our political instincts that if Trump won, he would do a lot of crazy and unprecedentedly corrupt things, even compared to his own standard of his first administration. I think within the first few hours of administration, we've been proven right about that. Trump is not going to be a moderate. He's not going to just not be divisive, like some people would have you believe. He's not going to appoint competent people. It's going to be a bad 4 years, guys. It's going to be a bad and unpredictably bad 4 years at that.
I think we got to do a little bit of triage here. Like, I don't know, man. I'm going to lose my shit if I live in the outrage. Like, we know he's going to get a honeymoon period for a short amount of time. It is what it is. It's going to be highly disturbing. Yep. And for me, I just can't live in that outrage. Our options right now are super limited. We can demonstrate, we can protest. There's other things we can do, right? But I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and just obsess about this stuff right now. I'm just not. It's just not sustainable for me. I don't know about you guys, but I will drive myself insane.
Well, I mean,
if I do that. I did the first term, and I'm just not going to do that again this time.
I can empathize. It's funny. I remember in the lead up to the election, even afterwards, I got a phone call from my father who said, I've got 4 sisters. And he said, 2 of them have told me, you look exhausted. You look really tired. and it was, they were trying to say it from a position of love. They were worried about me. And what's funny is the 2 who mentioned it are Trump supporters. So they knew why I was exhausted, but it's spiritually taxing. It really is, because there are a lot of political commentators out there that my suspicion is, they give great political analysis, but they come off so stoic. Sometimes I wonder, are you even emotionally invested in this? And sometimes I think that they're not, and it's just a profession, which I suppose there's nothing wrong with that. And then I'm envious. I'm like, damn, I wish I could be that guy who is a commentator who is just so secure either in his position or he finds a Zen-like quality that he's able to disassociate. I would actually love to do that, because I love doing what I do, but I don't like the emotional tax affiliated with it. And then I think to myself, damn, if this is how I feel, I imagine what the hell do people who are much more vulnerable and marginalized and in a worse position feel about this? So Hutch, I take your point that you gotta pace yourself, but it's almost like what we're seeing right now is a normalization of Trump that we never saw before. It was bad before. And then it was bad in 2020. And then it was bad in the aftermath when Trump was out of office. And we're seeing it hit a fever pitch, which is, I think there's a lot of people who genuinely believe that the United States it could never become, Hungary or Turkey. It could never become, one of these backsliding democracies. But we are on that. Like, we're not as sliding back as far as they are yet, but we are on the backslide in a lot of objective ways. And the extent to which this matters is if people give a shit. Like, I genuinely believe that, like, to Econoboi's point, the only way that this J6 shit matters, and I'm not entirely sure it will by even the midterms, let alone the next election, is if people make people care. And I think that's the challenge for us. Here he is. You're right. He's burying this in like dozens of other executive orders on day one, none of which will have this sort of like this headline nature. Like, he also withdrew us again from the Paris Climate Accords. That just happened as well.
He just says that he ended birthright citizenship with an executive order, which is, that seems about as valid as Biden affirming the 28th Amendment. But
I mean, not as that. No, because again, we always have to contextualize, I think, at the very least, like the motivations of why our political leaders do certain things. And I that's a perfect example, Hutch. And I don't mind that you made it. And it's not an unreasonable comparison, right? So at the end of Biden's administration, Kamala and Biden come out and say the 28th Amendment is the law of the land, and this is an equal rights amendment. You can look at the text, but it's basically a women's rights issue. Men are equal to women kind of thing in the Constitution. And Pisco can probably talk about the specifics, but essentially this was passed under kind of like...
I'm sorry, real quick. I apologize, Econoboi, but he added some context to the J6 pardons that we need to hear.
Mr. President, are you commuting the sentences of anyone who assaulted a police officer on January 6th?
Well, we're looking at two police officers, actually, that Washington police officers who went after an illegal, and things happened and they ended up putting them in jail.
What?
They got 5-year jail sentences. You know the case. And we're looking at that in order to give them a...
Is he confused here?
We got to give him a break.
Of course he's confused.
Wait, hold on.
Well, it would be a pardon. That would be a pardon. The one I'm talking about would be a pardon.
Here you go, sir. This is an
He seems confused. I don't think he understood the question.
No.
Well, I will say this. They've been in jail for a long time already. I see murderers in this country get 2 years, 1 year, and maybe no time. So they've already been in jail for a long time. These people have been destroyed.
I don't think he answered the question. Did he?
No. He did answer the question. He thinks Donald Trump thinks that if you assault a police officer, you shouldn't go to jail for a very long period of time. That is what he just said.
Yeah, no, but I don't know if did he answer the question if the people who assaulted cops specifically got pardons? I don't know if he answered
He dodged the question with this like nonsensical non sequitur, and then at the end, she asked him a third time, what about the people, who assaulted police officers? And then he said, well, I'll say this, they've been in jail for a long time. He's hinting that he will either commute their sentences or pardon. And then he was asked another follow-up.
What they've done to these people is outrageous. There's rarely been anything like it in the history of our country. And even people that were aggressive, and in many cases, I believe they happen to be outside agitators, but, what do I know, right? But I think they were outside agitators. There were outside agitators involved. And obviously the FBI was involved.
Boy, he is slow.
Because Ray admitted the FBI was involved. Didn't he say 23 people, indirectly or directly, were
Oh boy,
involved?
this is
And it was
bad.
26. That's a lot of people. Now we have. We got to take care of these people. Have been treated so badly. It's never happened before. What happened in Seattle, where they took over a big portion of the city? What happened in Portland, where they burned down? What they've done.
I totally disagree. I don't think we got any clarity on if he pardoned people who assaulted cops. I don't think he said definitively.
But the reason we don't have any clarity, again, we have to go back to this. It's because Trump he didn't do any diligence himself, right? He was handed an executive order from one of his handlers, because we care about Biden's handlers, but not Trump's handlers. One of his handlers handed him an executive order and said, "Sir, you promised to pardon the January 6 people. Here you go. Here's an executive order." He didn't look into this, Hutch. Like, he can't answer the question. He's not obviating or obfuscating, whatever word you would use. He just doesn't know, and he doesn't give a shit. And that's who our president is for the next 4 years.
He is really diminished. I mean, I feel like we don't have much of a leg to stand on being Biden defenders for so long, but yeah, doesn't he sound a little bit slower to you guys?
Yeah, well, the difference is, of course, as you know, is that one was talked about. It's so funny to hear people bitch like, this is such a cover up. Nobody talked about it. No, f you. Everybody did talk about it.
Nobody
Even
stopped
I
talking
had to
about it.
address it on my channel. It was exhaustively covered. Donald Trump's mental decline, to the extent that he has it, and I would argue he does have it, has been discussed a fraction of the time, even though polls were not really favorable towards Trump's mental fitness either. He was polling better than Biden on that topic, to be sure, but I saw multiple polls saying that a majority of Americans had questions about both of them. And then when Kamala Harris became the nominee, that delta was even more extreme. A majority of Americans felt that she was more mentally fit to be president than Trump. So no, I don't think it's hypocritical at all. I think if the standard is we need to evaluate the mental fitness of the president, that's fine, but hold them both to the same standard, which was always my position.
Sorry, just we did get it does appear we got some more clarity here, and it looks like it was a blanket pardon. If you want to put that on the screen.
I'll put that up.
As he's putting this up, just to be clear, I'm not even making a comment on Trump's diminished capacity. I'm just saying, I just don't think he gives a shit. Like, I think that's the big problem here.
Caitlin Collins from CNN. The text of the January 6th pardon says Trump has commuted 14 sentences like that of Stuart Rhodes and pardoned all other people convicted of offenses related to January 6th. He also directs the Attorney General to dismiss all pending indictments. The Bureau of Prisons shall immediately implement all instructions from the Department of Justice regarding this directive.
It's everybody.
It's everybody. Holy
oh my God.
Pisco, bro. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts,
I mean,
man?
it's what I said. It's what I said to people like David Portnoy, who, I've been tweeting at him a little bit. But you can't pretend to be pro cop and be in favor of getting rid of these cop eaters. You can't pretend to be in favor of the Constitution. You can't pretend to be in favor of patriotism if you are willing to sacrifice the rule of law and justice in this way. And it is so beyond words corrupt, so beyond words for the president to give these benefits, to abuse his office and power in this way to the people who try to entrench Trump in power illegally. I can't, I struggle to think in recent memory of a more corrupt action taken by a president of the United States.
And I can't, one of the reasons we've gone back and forth on this show about like, the rehabilitation of like people who after Trump was elected the first time kind of became oppositional. And I maybe this is an unfair thing to say, but like, I feel like I was like particularly unwilling to rehabilitate those people. But again, like every single politician and every single person who's in the Republican Party, who I'm sure there'll be people who will say, I'm sure the statements are already being written. Oh, I condemn it. He shouldn't have done a blanket pardon. You're the one that said people should vote for this guy to be president. You're the one that endorsed this guy to be president. There can be no forgiveness for any Republican politician who says, "Oh, I made a mistake, a little oopsie. What was I supposed to do? I didn't know Trump." You're either criminally stupid or you're just malicious, and you're just like a Lindsey Graham. You're like, I have no principles. I only care about winning my seat in re-election. Remember instances like this. These are the instances I remember in his first term. It's the reason why I'm so hard still on people like Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney. They took way too long to come out against Trump. And any Republican that supported Trump's re-election in 2024 deserves a lifetime of criticism for their actions of electing this man as president.
Here's the big question here. Is Rob Noor going to defend the blanket pardon?
He'll just say that Biden pardoned his family, and he'll obviate.
That's what he'll do. Yeah, that's what he'll do. Yep.
He'll never admit that Trump did anything wrong. Or here's what he'll say. He'll say, I don't agree with Trump on everything. I'm a nuanced Republican right-wing thinker. I think Trump does a lot of bad stuff. I supported DeSantis in the primary. Who did you vote for president, Rob? Who did you vote for president? It's a package deal. And I recognize the same thing with Kamala Harris. She's going to do things that I don't agree with. She's a package deal. I'm significantly further to the left than Kamala. But I don't think Kamala would do anything even approximating something that I would disagree with to this extent. That's the difference, Rob, is that Rob felt like, and people like Rob felt like, oh, yeah, there's a risk that he might pardon like literally everyone that assaulted police officers and people that broke into the Capitol. But I just don't really care about that if I'm Rob or people like Rob. And that's just, it's not just Rob, but like I just don't know how you can, I don't know with what moral framework or with what righteous framework you would say to yourself that that's just not that big of a deal, or that there are things that are more important than circumstances like that, right? I mean, I don't know. I just think that some things should be ultimately disqualifying.
Yeah, what's amazing to think about all of this, I mean, Pisco, isn't this is the end. This is the end of any meaningful legal consequence for anybody involved with the January 6th insurrection from Trump on down. This is it. It's done. The American legal system, the American political system, we failed.
We failed. The Congress failed when they did not remove Trump for his 2 impeachments.
Merrick Garland failed.
The state, well, stop. The states failed in what they did. The political parties have failed. The people have failed. The Supreme Court of the United States has utterly failed in its duty to observe and respect the Constitution of the United States. A dark, savage day as these savages have been released upon the United States to kill, loot, and steal. These are criminal elements. They're seditious elements. These are bad people. In fact, I would say a lot of these people should have been in bars, for the rest of their lives. That's what should happen to you if you try to overthrow the government and if you try to stop the peaceful transfer of power. But that all ended today. And it actually ended on the day we elected Donald Trump.